welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can make an amazing life in sales. And I'm super pumped to have today's guest on here. He is someone that I have had the pleasure of chatting with and using his platform, PodMatch, for almost a year now, maybe even a little bit longer. And to be honest with you, it has absolutely made this show possible by connecting me with amazing guests from sales. So welcome to the show, Mr. Alex Sanfillipo.
Drewby, thank you so much for the kind words, man. That means a lot. As a fan of your show, I'm truly honored to be here today, man. It really means a lot that you'd have me.
Well, I appreciate it, and I want to dive right in, man. I want to hear your crazy sales story.
Yeah, man, this comes before my software and podcasting days, but I'm going to go back to my prior. I had a 15-year career in the aerospace industry, and I wasn't an astronaut, skydiver, or fighter pilot, so like nothing interesting, right? I was selling parts to different airlines and stuff like that, and I'll never forget this one time. There was this company in Texas, and I've worked in Florida, and I just knew these guys were like, they were good old boys. Like they had a really big operation, but they were good old boys. They just wanted to hang out. And there was this really big bid that they like sent out to a number of companies, ours being one of them. And in all honesty, like we probably weren't the most qualified. Like I knew we could deliver it, but like our credentials probably weren't going to do it. But I made the decision, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to talk to one of their guys. And I'm going to fly over there and hang out with them. I'm just going to go do that. So I asked them like, hey, if I come to Texas, what do y'all want to do? And these guys, this proves that they were good old boys. They wanted to buy an old beat up car. They wanted to take a whole bunch of guns out to one of their friends' property and just shoot this car and blow it up all day. And I was like, thinking to myself, I'm like, this is a public company I work for. I'm like, is my company controller going to fire me? I'm like, I'm taking the risk. I got on a plane. I flew over there. I helped invest in this car, and I spent $15,000 on ammo that day. They brought out 30 people, and they had about 100 guns. And like, I got bored of shooting. Like I'm in Florida, and we don't have the option just to go out in our backyard and shoot guns. But like, I was like, man, it's been like 6 hours. These dudes are just not giving up. Right. And I'll never forget it, man. My company controller called me while I was out there, and she goes, I just saw a credit card thing hit. She goes, did you just spend $15,000 on ammunition? I was like, yeah, I did. And she goes, you are in so much trouble. She goes, this goes like beyond, this goes to HR. Like this is beyond me and blah, blah, blah. And all this, I got off the phone. I was like kind of terrified. I was like, I have good rank in this company. Like, I don't think I'll get fired, but this is definitely going to be getting written up and probably get my hand held forever. But I walked back to the guys, and the main contact, I'm like, man, my company controller is not happy I spent this money. He just laughed. He's like, what do we need to do? I'm like, could you spend more than $15 today, or $15,000 today? He goes, yeah, I can. He makes a phone call, and literally they bought like $100,000 on that first day. We basically like signed a contract. They spent that. I called her back. I'm like, this was the only way we're going to get this deal. It ended up being like one of our biggest customers for the foreseeable future. But it was all because of just like me kind of feeling like, I think I just need to go meet these guys and have like a strange day. And man, one thing led to another, but that was like a really crazy, risky sales opportunity that I took.
I absolutely love that story for a number of reasons. One, having worked in Texas for a number of years myself, there are 100% a whole lot of good old boys that love the good old boy process. And what I think is really important for people to understand is that sales is so much more dynamic than having a great script and being a slick talker and like looking good and sounding good. There's so much more to it. And the thing that I've always agreed on is it's a relationship-based growth. If you can build a strong relationship with someone, you can genuinely change their life, and they'll be happy to tell other people about how you help them change their life. So, as you've progressed and come out of aerospace, and now you're in this podcasting world, what even got you into podcasting to begin with? How did this all start?
Yeah, for me, I wanted to get out of corporate. I enjoyed my time there, but it was a public company. It was a great company, and I actually left at year 15 on very good terms. I've been back a few times to speak at people's going away parties and stuff like that, which is really a gift. But I just knew it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I wanted it to be something that felt more relational. Like I had that story that I shared, which I love, but like that wasn't every day of the job. And I was like, I want something that makes it feel like I'm part of a community that's really doing something impactful. And I decided to, this is maybe, I don't know. Now I think it sounds genius, but back then I just think it was desperation. But I started a podcast 2 years before I left my corporate job because I didn't really know how to be an entrepreneur. So I started a podcast talking to people who had successfully left a 9-to-5 job to become a full-time entrepreneur to see what they did. And now I look back, I'm like, that was really smart. Back then I was like desperate, I think, right? So it was like free information that I was getting. And two things happened. One, I learned how to become an entrepreneur. But two, I learned that I wanted to be in podcasting. Like I fell in love with the impact that not just my show had, but other people's shows had, and just how it seemed to be such a tight-knit community and not as cutthroat as my previous career and industry that I was in. And so I just fell in love with it. And that's ultimately what led me to really implementing what I learned as an entrepreneur. And I'll quickly share that's maybe an oversimplified framework, but step one, and find an area of passion for me was podcasting, being behind the microphone. Step two is to get into that community. So for me, I got into the community podcast. I started speaking at all the conferences. And step three is to find a simple problem that community is struggling with. And the final step, 4, is to offer the fastest possible solution. And so for me, it goes back to the beginning of 2020. Before the world shut down, I was on a stage with about 2,000 people in the room. It was a podcasting conference because, again, I was in the community. When I got off stage, before I got off stage, I said, hey, anyone who wants to talk to me, like I'd love just a minute of your time. And so a line formed, and which I'm very grateful for. Most people just being like, hey, great job. They're just being nice, right? But I took a pen and paper and I wrote down a few things: their name, their email address, and what they were struggling with in podcasting. And actually, this makes me want to call out something you said, Drewby, on episode 55 of your show. You actually, this was a line that you said that really stood out to me. And you said, I'm just going to focus on helping people, and you don't need any special skill to help people. You just need to ask the right questions. And for me, what I realized that no one in podcasting was asking is, what are you struggling with? We were just preaching from stage, more or less, right? And so that was the first time I actually did that. And when I came home, I whiteboarded out, because coming from corporate, I had whiteboards all over my office and room, right? And I whiteboarded out, and I'll never forget. I was like, man, what people were saying they were struggling with is finding the right guests for their show in a streamlined fashion. They can find people who want to be on the show, but not the right people. And so I was like, what if there was basically like a dating app, but instead of connecting people for dates, it connects them for podcast interviews? And you mentioned at the start, but PodMatch.com, we built it for that, connecting podcast guests and hosts completely off of the idea of, what are you struggling with in podcasting? How can we help? And that's what people were describing. So that was my transition from corporate to podcasting. I've been doing this full time since 2020.
It is so cool how an individual that decides, I'm going to do this, will figure it out. And now there's not to say that there aren't a lot of ups and downs and roller coaster moments. That's entrepreneurship, folks. So if any of you aren't an entrepreneur already, like, be ready. And still, though, you can make money and create a lifestyle and a brand and a living however you want if you're willing to do the work. And what I love about that is, as you just said, hey, how can I help people? And with the podcasting world, having done hundreds and hundreds of interviews over the years, and I have one show that I did myself for like 1,000 episodes. The hardest part was finding interesting people to talk to that genuinely had a good process for talking. Because let's be honest, there have been people that we've talked to over the years that are really, really tough to talk to. But when you can build that skill set to get people to share their story and get them to talk about the things, that becoming a podcast host or a guest is such a fun thing to do. And I can say from experience that your community was brought to me by someone from another community that I was a part of. We were in a mastermind together, and he's like, hey, Drewby, I know you're looking for guests. You should get on this PodMatch thing. And objectively, yeah, he was probably trying to like sign me up under his links or whatever. But at the end of the day, that little comment of, hey, I think you'll find some value over here, you should check it out, led me to a world where I've got 90 episodes in the bank. I think we're only on like 70 right now on like public, but we've been able to create so much content and speak to so many amazing people that we could do this indefinitely and still not have run out of things to talk about. So within your business, like what have you found has been a tricky roadblock to get people to believe that they can actually do this or be a part of the podcast community like this?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is it was building my own reputation in a new industry. Again, coming from aerospace and moving over to podcasting, sure, the people in that room that day when I got the idea, like they knew me, and they were our first 100 people to join. It was like 100 people who said the same thing that day. And so they all joined the day we launched because I had their email address, right? And They knew who I was. But beyond that, I didn't have a lot of influence. And so for me, from day one, what I found tricky was reaching out to people. Convince is a strong word, but more or less to convince them to give it a shot, right? I really struggled with that. And not because I was not confident in it. I just think I didn't have much of a reputation. So I didn't feel like I had anything to stand on. So people were like, oh yeah, well, who are you? It's like, oh, well, that's a good question, right? Like I'm not really sure who I am. But I think for a while, I really struggled with that specifically to start building like momentum. And so for me, I asked myself a question that actually one of your guests, Rachel Minion, I think was her name. So it was episode, I remember the episode, I remember numbers. It was episode 65. And something that Rachel said, she's like, what do you want your ideal client to say about you behind your back? And for me, I realized that was the question that I needed to ask myself. And by the way, I recommend everyone go back and listen. That was a very good episode 65. Shameless plug there. But for me, I was like, what do I want the people to say about me after they try PodMatch, or if they decide not to try PodMatch? Like, am I going to burn a bridge and be like, well, screw you then, right? Like, or am I going to be like, hey, that's cool. No worries. Here's something else. And so for me, what I started doing is working on my reputation in podcasting. So it was like a very indirect type of sales thing, but it was just a way that I could somehow build a touch point with each of these individuals. So I still say it today, like I believe I've become a lead educator in the podcasting space, both for guests and for hosts beyond PodMatch. And typically when I talk to people, I don't even really mention PodMatch anymore until it comes up, typically from them, not just from me. I want to hear that that's something that they're actually looking for versus just like, Drew, but you need it. I promise you need it. You don't know you need it, but you need it, right? Like, and in some scenarios, perhaps that is the right form of selling. But for me, again, going back to my whole core, the relational side of things, I know I'm good at educating. I know I'm good at helping. I know I'm good at serving. So I'm just going to double down on those things. And the byproduct is sometimes you were like, well, what do you got for guest? Or what do you got for me being a guest? And be able to introduce it. I don't know if that fully answers your question. If it doesn't, help me frame it properly. But I kind of thought that was a healthy direction for that to go.
No, it's perfect, because what I always try to work with people when they're like, oh, I'm new to sales and I'm trying to find some success and I'm just not sure, like there's so many aspects of sales in general, right? You've got marketing, you've got sales, you've got the fulfillment aspect. And a lot of times a new sales professional is like, hey, how do I build relationships? How do I get people to know, like, and trust me? As you said, how do I build my brand and influence in this space? And becoming an educator and an entertainer is the easiest way for you to get known without being spammy or obnoxious. And being able to create a podcast where you're literally just sharing valuable information about the product or service that you represent. And also, you could have a podcast about something totally unrelated to the business that you do. And just by proxy, people are going to be like, well, what do you do outside of podcasting? And you're like, well, I own an insurance agency, or I sell roofs, or whatever that thing is, right? You can create connection with people. And if people know, like, and trust you, they will tell other people about their business and your podcast. And that's the fun thing. And when you build the right relationships with the right people, the right things start happening. And that's, I'm going to shamelessly plug PodMatch, because being able to go on there and filter down and say, hey, I'm looking for sales professionals that have this experience, that are, doing these kinds of things. It has made my life so much easier to connect with those kind of people. And that's what led me to meeting Rachel and a lot of the guests that we've had in the last 20 or so episodes, is having a room where the conversation was all about one thing. How can I help other people get the thing that they're looking for by providing value in a way that is trustworthy and not obnoxious? And so kudos to you, man. It's been such a fun thing to be a part of.
Man, you just said the core of, thank you, first off, but you just said the core of what gets me like on fire. Like it's the value of podcasting as a guest or as a host. I love that you just touched on this. It's developing this know, like, and trust more for the host, right? Like, cause that's the platform. It gives you this, I don't know, prestige level, right? The guest as well, though. And man, I'm going to share a story that I think is just reinforces so much. This was going back years ago. Are you familiar with like SMS marketing, like text message marketing?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So when that first came out, I saw somebody do it and I'm like, I know nothing about that, but I want in. That looks cool. And so I think this was like 2018 or something like that. And so I found 3 companies using a search engine. I opened up all 3 and I was like, I still know nothing. I just know that now I need to pay. But before I pay, like, let me see if I can find anything. At that point in my life, I loved podcasts. So I went to my podcast player app, and at that point it was probably Apple Podcast. I typed in SMS marketing, and then I typed in SMS marketing tactics, success, strategies. And guess what? Of those 3 companies, one of them had a podcast And that same company had their like senior marketing guy going on podcast. So it's the same voice on both of them. I binged their podcast, went through all this guesting stuff, and guess which company I signed up with? That one. And the thing is, like, I went back out of curiosity because I'm like, oh man, I feel like I can be really successful now. Like, they have invested in me. They developed that know, like, and trust. This dude's cool. I could hang out with him. Like, I even remember telling my wife that. I looked out of the 3 companies, theirs was the most expensive, and all 3 products were about the same. I didn't care at all. I was like, this person already invested in me so much. Like, I'm going to be successful because of what they did. Man, that right there is the power of this whole thing, right? Like, what a beautiful thing. And like, I think that more people that are in sales, that are in marketing, that are running companies, even if you're at a company, like we should be getting into this podcasting thing.
I'm going to go a little step deeper on that, because one of the things that I've learned about being a guest on a podcast, or having, like you said, there's a prestige. It's the authority that you can build, and you can do it in 2 ways. One, you can share, the value and be an expert on your topic on these shows. But when people are reaching out to you, one of my favorite things in the world to do, if someone's asking me a question that I know is going to take more than 30 seconds to explain, or more than 1 or 2 sentences, I'll say, hey, I actually talked about this on this episode, or hey, a guest on my show said this, and I think you'll really appreciate it. And then I'm saving myself 30 to 45 minutes of trying to explain this whole thing over and over and over again. And they're like, hey, this guy really went out of his way to make sure I had this piece of value. And I appreciate that. And it steps your level of authority up, especially when you're a guest and you're on a show and people are like hyping you up and talking about how stoked they are that you're there. Like, that's one of the greatest things. And it's a transfer of influence and authority that cannot be accomplished in very many other ways. Like, there are other ways, but podcasting is one of the best ways to get your name out there, and do it in a way that, as you mentioned, people don't know you exist until they go online and they search. And if you're doing this right, like, by golly, they're going to find your show. And I always say, like, what if somebody is just getting into sales and they just happen to go on there and this is the show that they find? Like, that's awesome. That to me is what I'm looking for, because if we can help one person, then that changes the whole game for the world, because you never know what that butterfly effect could be. So I'd be curious, how many podcast episodes do you think your guests and hosts have put together and put out into the world at this point?
Without like cheating the system, like everything in me is wanting to go to podmatch.com and go look, because we actually post that on the homepage. And I actually personally only look at active. So people that have used PodMatch in the last 45 days is what I look at. And I could be totally off on this number. I think it's like 140,000 interviews have been released by the people that are active right now. It should total just over 300,000 if my thinking is correct. It's about 300,000 interviews, sometimes up to 300 and 400 just in one day is what we're seeing right now, of connections being made and actually interviews being scheduled and happening, which, man, listen, I am so proud of that and so thankful. I never in my wildest dreams imagined that. Like in my wildest dreams when we started, like I just couldn't fathom something like that. And to this day, I'm still kind of like, what is this real? Like, but man, like what a beautiful thing. And I don't take full credit for that. Like, it's a community of people that want to serve the world. Because I mean, you and me, we're not here for each other. We're here for like a little bit, right? But we're really here for the listeners. Like, we're here to serve and make someone's life better with what we share. And anytime I see those numbers, I remember this is not like a vanity metric for Alex. This is how the world's being served with podcasting.
That is so powerful, man. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of that, because I, for one, love sharing this value. It's one of those things where if I could make more time in the day, I would spend more time podcasting and sharing episodes. And what I know for me, when I started my podcasting journey, I had a mentor, and the one thing he said to me was, don't quit. And I'd be curious, on your side of things, for people that are getting into the podcasting world, what advice might you have for them?
Don't quit is good advice. I have more, but don't quit is good advice. And I want to kind of reinforce that. If you're on the host side of things, 8 episodes is a milestone in podcasting, believe it or not. More than 50% of people quit before reaching 8 episodes. That's 2 months. And the thing is, I've personally found that most people don't really get any meaningful results out of being a host before 100 episodes. 2 years if you're doing a weekly show, right? That's a lot of time, but I think that's how long it takes many of us to find our voice, to find our rhythm, to find our niche, to really understand our listener. And on the guesting side, it doesn't take that long, but I've met so many guests. So I'm like, have you ever been a guest? Like, didn't work. I'm like, what do you mean didn't work? How many times did you do it? Twice. I'm like, twice? Did you get on the right shows? Like, come on. Like, how long did you wait before you decided this didn't work? it's like anything in life. Like we get out of it, we put into it, and time matters. I always think back to Jerry Rice, one of the greatest NFL players of all time. He has that famous quote where he said, "Today I'll do what others won't, so tomorrow I'll have what others can't." He worked 18 years or more in the dark before any of us even knew his name, right? But he became the best of all time out overnight because he did all that in the dark. And so I tell people, you got to stick with it. You have to stick with it, and you have to commit to a certain amount of time. For me, when I started as a host and as a guest, I said I'm committing to 100 episodes on both sides of the microphone, so 200 total, before I'm willing to reevaluate and decide if I'm even going to let myself quit. And by then, both were doing really well. And so I'm grateful for that. But I think the other thing I'd add to that is what helps us not to quit. And what helps us not to quit is having a real purpose or a real why behind it. And this can get a little bit woo, I know, but I think it's really important that you sit down with pen and paper and say, okay, why am I going to be a guest on podcasts? Why am I going to have my own show? What is the reason for this? And tied directly to that is the avatar. So it's the person that you say, this is who I want to speak to. And I think when you can get those things really right, like step back, pull yourself out of the equation, right? Like, yeah, have your own reasons, of course, but like, who is it really for? Why are you doing it? It gives you a reason to keep on going when the going gets tough. When you're like, I'm ready to quit, but now if I remember my personal avatar, so this is me speaking right now, is I call him Adam. And I know Adam's whole backstory, and I'm doing this for Adam. On the days when I'm just like, I don't feel like it, even though I love it, right? I can say, you know what, but Adam is expecting me to show up today. I'm going to show up for Adam really well. So I think having the stick with itness and the why, the passion, the purpose behind it, those two things hand in hand are a winning recipe in podcasting.
I couldn't agree more. And it's one of those things where you never know who's listening. You know, I'm at a point now in my show where like we run ads and we sell books and all kinds of stuff, you know, and I'll get on the phone with someone and they're freaking stoked that it's me. They're like, wait, you're the guy? You actually do the thing that you say other people should do? That's crazy. I've been listening to your podcast. I've been reading your books. Like, I'm doing the thing. And it always blows me away to hear, hey man, I've been listening to your podcast and I did that thing from the episode and this is how it changed my life. It's absolutely the most humbling thing in the world to hear someone say, I listened to you, I invested some time, energy, and effort into you, and it allowed me to do this thing that changed my life. And I am just so grateful for the listeners that are out there. And I just want to remind the listener now, if you start a show and you don't get 1 million episodes and you don't go viral right away, it doesn't matter. I promise you that if 1 million people showed up with a credit card to buy something from you, your business would fall apart. So like you don't need 1 million listeners up front. You just need a handful of that avatar who you know are in the position that you can help get out of the position they're in. And if you just lean in on that, man, I promise you, you will find success in this world without a doubt.
That's one of the most insightful things. Like, I know you've been doing this for decades now. And like, I just think too many people don't think about that. We're like, oh, I need more listeners, more of this. I'm like, if they all turn into leads today, could you deliver? And typically the answer is no. Like most people, like, especially doing high ticket, you need 1 or 2 leads a week, right? If 5,000 showed up today, you're going to go under. Like, we can't do that. And we all think it sounds great until it's time to deliver, of course, right? Like, I got a coaching practice. I want 5,000 leads. It's like, no, you don't. You want 5 really good ones, right? And I think that's so insightful for people to hear. But to add to that, because I think that taking that even a level deeper is so important, we get preconditioned by social media numbers. And so I find that podcast guests specifically, they show up and they're expecting big numbers, tens of thousands, millions, all these huge numbers, right? But social media, although it has its place, I'm not trying to say anything bad about it, it's not the same as podcasting. I compare podcasting to you and the host, a host and a guest, sitting on a stage with an audience, sitting in seats right in front of you, listening to you, notepads in hand. That's typically the mindset that people are in when they're listening to a podcast. Now, again, to kind of compare that to social media, most people are trying to waste time or relax, chill, right? They're not necessarily in the mode of like, I need to better myself right now. So has its place. We probably all do both, right? But think about that value. If you're a podcast host or guest and you're having that collaborative time together, there's 30 people sitting in a room. Is that not valuable if they're the right 30 people? To me, I'd show up that room every single day if they're willing to all be there for me. And so I think we have to have the right frame of mind. If I don't need big numbers, I just need the right people in the room. Is this the right podcast for me? Am I producing the right podcast for my listeners?
Oof, that is so good. And listen, man, we could probably sit here and nerd out on this like all day long. I want to be respectful of your time. You have hundreds, if not thousands of people on your platform who need you and who are using your amazing stuff to change lives all over the world. So what's the best way for people to come and find you, to learn more about the PodMatch system? How does all this work?
Yeah, if you just go to podmatch.com/free, podmatch.com/free, it's going to give you some quick wins, whether you're a podcast guest, host, or if you're an aspiring guest or host saying, hey, I might want to get into this on either side of the microphone. It's totally free. It doesn't ask for your email address or anything like that. It's just going to give you some quick wins to help you move forward. And again, that's podmatch.com/free. But I seriously recommend hanging here. Like, Drewby, you've got a really good thing going. This is a great show. As a listener myself, I really, really just appreciate you having me and what you're doing.
It is an honor to know you took some time out of your valuable life to spend it listening to me ramble, and all of the amazing guests who I'd say at least 95% I met on podmatch.com. So like, I am a full case study and testimonial to how amazing the platform is. And as always, you guys know, if you enjoyed the show, if you got some value out of it, share it, send it to a friend, tag somebody on social media, send it to someone who's terrible at sales and needs to learn more of the relationship side of it instead of being a hardcore, like, shove it in your face closer guy. It can be anything you want it to be. So Alex, I'm going to ask you, because I'd love to ask this question before we get out of here. Let's say someone just showed up. They're new to sales. They're new to all of this. If you can give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
Listen to what that other person needs from you and try your best to deliver meeting their needs.
Sweet and simple. I love it. As always, man, it has been an honor. Thank you again for taking some time to be here today.
Thanks, Drewby. Appreciate you, man.
You guys know what to do now. If you've got an amazing story and you want to share it on the show, first sign up at podmatch.com and get on there and go find some other awesome shows to be a part of. But then go to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your info. Let's get you booked in. Let's tell your story, because your story is what people care about. And if you got a great story, we want to put it on the show. So go to callthedamnleads.com/podcast, and then, go call your damn leads so that you have the money and the time to do this more in the future. We'll see you guys next time.